I'm glad I enlisted you to help me with the process. I don't know that I'd be able to do it. Sounds complicated.
We are live.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. Very good to see you. I hope you guys can all see me okay. We're trying something a little different today and doing this through Zoom. So I'm going to give a minute for folks to sign on and make sure it's working properly and that you can hear me. And it's got a delay because I just checked it on my phone, so that's good. So I'm going to go through some things, and Tamara is my assistant who has joined us to help me navigate all of this. And Tamara, it has just come to my realization that I'm going to have a hard time seeing chats. Oh, wait, I can log in on my phone and watch the chats. Got to be innovative, right? Okay, so we're going to try this. Good afternoon, everybody. I can't see how many. Why, thank you, Sonia. If only you knew the mess that was really behind me right now. But I'm glad to know you guys can hear me. Looks like people are signing on. Looks like the word got out that I have some scoop for you today. So let me just set some clear expectations right away. I got a lot, excuse me, I've got a lot to cover today because I've got some follow-up from last week. I've got some new scoop, some exciting scoop. So I hope you're in it for the duration for us today, but it will be, I think, a lengthy session. So I'm very excited to share some things with you guys. Okay, perfect. I have a new setup with all of this. So now I'm working on 3 devices at one time. So no one can say I can't multitask. Well, admittedly, I may not do it successfully. So we'll see. Looks like people are still signing on. So I don't want to jump too far ahead. All right, I am going to get us started with some basic updates for you guys. Just a couple reminders for you. January 30th is right around the corner. That is when we will be hosting our Cultivating Connections Through an Equity Lens, our professional development conference that we have coming up. We're really excited about this partnership with the Foundation for Healthy St. Petersburg to help us get these resources out to you guys. Cool thing is this year it's free and you can get CEUs or the training hours that you guys need. So it's certainly an opportunity for your teachers or as individual providers. And we hope that you will be able to join us. Last I heard, we had over 200 people already signed up, which is an awesome turnout, but we certainly have room for more and would love to have you join us. So just a plug for our conference. Why won't it let me go forward? Ah, look at that, it worked. On a related note, don't forget about the Florida Early Childhood Educator Training Stipends. Oh, I should go back. This PowerPoint y'all are seeing, you're gonna get it emailed. So don't try to take screenshots or write everything down, don't worry. I just thought it would be a helpful guide as we walked through our conversation. So you're going to get it. So don't worry. And I tried to put the links in these things if I did it successfully. So it's easier for you guys to connect to those different things as well. So don't forget about the stipends that are available if you attend or participate in specific trainings. I know there had been a couple of questions about it. This website that I'm pointing you guys to should be able to give you all of the information. But it's a good opportunity. It doesn't cost you guys, well, there's a cost for the training, but in the end, you make money off of it, or your teachers do, and it's some really good training that helps to improve your program. So just a plug, and remember, that's on a first come, first serve basis. So if they run out of money, then you won't have the opportunity. Even though it's through June 30th, there's only a limited pot. So take advantage. If you're going to do it, take advantage of it early. All right, I hope to see a bunch of you guys this weekend. Of course, I can't be in 2 places at once, but our amazing team is putting together a really awesome distribution event for our essential necessities. So there will be North County and South County events. We'll have one tomorrow, again on Wednesday and on Thursday. Tried to shake up the times to make it convenient for folks. We've got some daytime, evening, even a Saturday, and those will be at the addresses listed there. We will be distributing 500 gallons of hand sanitizer along with books, and for Literacy Week, which we'll talk about, over 8,000 masks that are the clear masks and over 5,000 of the of some fabric masks with our partners at JWB. So we're really excited about this event. Hope you'll come out. It should be pretty easy, smooth, no contact, safe distribution, but certainly some much needed resources from what we've heard from you. Okay, Celebrate Literacy Week. The books that we will be distributing, the books that we've done are that the state selected are 10 Tiny Toes and What I Like About Me. Their theme this year is My Community and Me. So of course it lasts all week next week. They always do this simultaneous read with the hope that everybody will read the same book at the same time on January 27th at 9 a.m. We would love for you guys to participate. If you do, take pictures, post it on social media, share it, tag us in it. We'd love to be able to share that for you guys. If it doesn't work for you to read it on January 27th at 9 a.m. and you read it on January 28th, that's okay. Don't worry about it. It's cool to do the simultaneous read, but most importantly, we just want you guys to be able to celebrate literacy and reading with your kids. So you guys do what works for you. You know how to run your programs and make it convenient so it fits into your schedule. But we hope you'll have some fun with it next week. I know I'm kind of plowing through some of this stuff, so don't hesitate to let me know if you have questions, but I kind of want to get to the juicier stuff. So a couple follow-up things for you guys. One, last week we had a whole conversation about full-time holiday pay for school-age children. Specifically, these are school-age children who are attending full-time care because they're doing remote learning. Now, this is not a huge number of children, but we know that they exist. There was definitely some confusion on this, and I did get clarification and have worked with our team to get things corrected. So if a child is attending consistently at on a full-time level, so they're eligible for full-time care, they're a school ager, they're doing the remote thing, like my kids are and many kids are, but parents are working during the day, so the child is attending a family childcare home or an alternative program to keep group sizes down, and the provider closes for a holiday, they will be paid the full-time rate for those. Now, if you're providing school-age care for part-time kids after school and you have a holiday, of course you would only get paid part-time. The idea with paid holidays is that we keep you whole for those holidays so that you're reimbursed. Now, here's the thing. If you're in that boat, you've got the school ager, do not pause this right now and pick up the phone and start calling your reimbursement specialist, because they actually have to go in and manually fix it, but they're running a report and they're walking through each one. The providers, you guys can't do it on your end. Our staff have to do it. And so they're already working on it. So just be patient. Our goal is to actually get them adjusted for the February deadline. I'm not promising that. It's possible because there are some corrections that need to be made. Humans, we're doing human work. Sometimes we make a mistake. We'll fix it. I promise. Our goal is to get it fixed for you in the January reimbursement cycle. And as you'll see with the other things that are coming up, if it doesn't make it through the January cycle in time, it would be in the February cycle. So I apologize for the oversight, for the delay, but we're going to make it right. We'll make you whole and get things corrected for you. So we got it sorted out. Nothing's easy right now. Nothing's standard right now. So some of this is a work in progress. So I appreciate your patience with it, but the good news is we've gotten it sorted. All right. The other question. So I've received some questions, which is so incredibly helpful from you. So thank you to those of you who have shared your input and feedback, because I've gotten some specific questions about things that you guys are trying to sort through. And so part of my hope in doing this PowerPoint was to provide a little bit more and clearer direction on what these things are. So that heads up on what you've got questions on really helps me to be prepared, hopefully to give you good information and answer your questions. So last week there was a question about the I-9 and the confusion with E-Verify. So let me just first clarify. The I-9 is a document that you already use that is collected to show that someone is legal to work in the United States, right? What E-Verify is a data system that basically you have to verify that that's an accurate I-9. You're basically just, it's a double check to make sure that they're actually registered in the system and that it's legit. So early in December, we sent out an email that said, you've got to turn in this affidavit. And this is, because the law was going into effect January 1st and we have local funding and we were trying to make sure we were in compliance with all those things. And When we did that, we then realized we got subsequent guidance that basically the way the law was written is that it applies to new contracts signed after January 1. And since your contracts were existing, we were able to let that carry out to the end of it. So then there was a follow-up email that says, remember we sent you that email about this? Take a breath, relax. We don't have to get it done by January 1. So what I want to do is first, I apologize for that confusion. I will own personally that I misunderstood it. So I'm sure I guided my staff incorrectly and they responded accordingly. So that's the gist of what happened with that. So what do you need to do right now? Let's walk through that. First, there are still a handful of you that are on an extension of your 1920 contracts, and that didn't get the class assessment because of COVID. And so we had to do those extensions. Once you get your class assessment, you're then going to sign the 2021 contract, and you will have to comply with the E-Verify. Now, when you get to that point where you're signing that contract and we're doing those things, the staff is going to walk you through this. So don't panic about it or anything. They'll walk you through, but this is just how it's working. If you already have a 2021 contract, then you don't need to complete the E-Verify requirements in terms of that affidavit before the 21-22 contract. So once you get your provider profiles done, we initiate the contracts for next year. You're going to see changes in your contract specifically around E-Verify, and you will have to submit that affidavit with your contract renewal. And we will ask that you upload those into your provider document library, where you put your other supporting documents and things like that. And then finally, moving forward, the affidavit would have to be signed each contract year moving forward. Now, if you've already submitted if you submitted it because you were just so Johnny on the spot, which we love and appreciate, and you already submitted it, then you're fine. But basically, once you've registered, you'll submit that to us. Now, your contract affidavit, what you submit to us, you'll have to do each year. I believe the way that the E-Verify system works, that's monitored by the Homeland Security, you shouldn't have to register every year. Once you're registered, I believe that you're good to go. Now, in order to register, you do have to have an EIN number. And there are other questions to this, I know, on our website. And I apologize because there's the link I forgot. The FAQs on our provider. If you go to our website, elcpinellas.org, and you just hit for providers, if you scroll down, you'll see where there's links to contracts and different resources, forms and stuff. And there's actually an E-Verify FAQ in there that actually has a lot more detail in terms of how to register for an EIN, all the instructions and information is all available in there. So you'll be able to see that. But that's what it is. So I apologize for the confusion for it, but that's how it will roll out. And I'm not seeing, let's see. So Kristen, I don't think you're going to have to redo it. If you already have the extension and you've done it, you should be in good shape. Tina and the gang will make sure that you're good to go on it, but it sounds like you're already covered. Let's see. I'm going to go back for 1 second. Tammy, you always got full-time pay, holiday pay for holidays that took place during a full-time school break. Normal holidays outside of COVID, normal holidays, you would get, I believe it would be part-time, but I'm not, hold on. I don't want to mess this up. So if you're serving school age kids, if you do before and after care and they're on a normal winter break, you would normally get paid based upon the break. You are correct. So that should be the case. The issue that we're having now is that these are not necessarily part of a break that would be under normal circumstances. These are holidays where a child would have been attending part-time, not full-time. Okay, so Tawana, you're correct. You don't have to register each year, but it is part of your contract for us each year. So you'll see references to E-Verify, but you don't have to register each year. Okay, the other question we had was, is there a checklist or something that we could give you as reference to prepare for contract monitoring so that you know what we're looking for when we come out, because that is coming back. We are resuming our monitoring practices. So first, the checklist is your contract. Your contract is the document that gets that lists all the things you're required to do. So everything we're monitoring is based on the contract. Now, it can be a little cumbersome and wordy, I get it, but that's the starting point. So then we also, and this is also available on that same providers tab, there's actually a copy of the school readiness monitoring tool. And this is a tool that is adopted by rule. It's part of the Florida Administrative Code. This is a tool adopted by the Office of Early Learning that has been vetted and is our required tool that we use. That tool is also posted on our website. This is an open book test. There's no surprises. We're not going to sneak up and try to find something. We're telling you openly what it is we're going to look for when we get there, and then we follow those guidelines. So if you look on our website and you look at that tool, it tells you exactly what we're looking for, what qualifies as credit. It's pretty specific. So that you guys are we want to set you up for success, which is why we've had this on our website all along, so that you know exactly what's being expected of you. So that's where the checklist would be. If you have other questions about that, certainly you can talk to your contract specialist, but that's what it would be. All right, now I mentioned that the contract is changing. So I just wanted to let you guys know, and this page that's linked to the bottom here, the statewide initiatives proposed rules. So when I say things are in rule or they are in Florida Administrative Code, there are, just like there's the Constitution, there's the statute. The statute says what things are, and then there's Florida Administrative Codes. The statute's passed by the legislature, and then there's Florida Administrative Code, which is essentially the interpretation and the in practice rules that are set by the agency heads and the agencies that are leading this. So in our case, that would be the Office of Early Learning in the Department of Education. So within that, there are these chapters. So when we refer to 6M 4.610, that is the school readiness statewide contract. So anything that's 4.6 is going, or that's a 4, 6M-4 is school readiness, 6M-8 is VPK. So then when we say rules, or we say, that's what we're talking about. It's not just Lindsay made a rule, but these are like officially rules as a proper noun. So when they want to change a rule, they have to go through a rule promulgation process. And what that means is that first, it's a very tight and very strict regimented process where they first announce that they plan to change the rule. They just make it known they're going to change the rule. Then they will hold workshops. So they'll release a draft. They will hold workshops and hear feedback from the public. And I know some of you guys participate on these already, but they'll host, and these days, of course, they're virtual, but they'll host workshops where they will hear feedback from the public. They may take the feedback. They always take the feedback. They may change it. They may not. But they'll do it as like a public hearing. And then they go through it. Then they have to go through another rule workshop. I can't remember. I think it's a workshop, then a public hearing that they have to go through. Once they go through that, it then goes to the State Board of Education for approval. Once it's approved from there, it then has to go through the Joint Administration Policy Committee, referred to as JAPC. I know this is kind of boring, but it goes to this committee that's made up of both legislators and hooty-hoos to make sure that everything's kosher, and then it becomes official and they are able to pass the rule. So there's a long process if they want to change anything that's in any of those rules. We are amidst a rule process right now for both the contracts and the school readiness program requirements, and there are workshops that are coming up. So you can provide input as constituents. You can read through these proposed rules, and they're available if you go to that link at the bottom and see what it is they're proposing to change, and then you can provide feedback. So for consideration, you have a voice just like any kind of other public comment. I will tell you, like FACM and FLACY and some of the associations and organizations oftentimes will provide feedback accordingly. Coalitions provide feedback, and private providers also provide feedback. But you have the opportunity to do this as well. And so I encourage you to look at that. The contracts, the changes in the contract are really primarily around the E-Verify, and then they tie in some of the changes, I believe, with program assessment. The program assessment changes they are looking to increase the minimum score for class to a 3.5. I will tell you, this is a minimal increase. It's not going to affect very many providers in Pinellas County, so we'll work through that. It's got a process, but I would take a closer look at that. And now, as soon as I said 3.5, I'm second guessing myself. So I think it's a 4.0. I looked at it this morning and I'm blanking. I'm so sorry, you guys, but you can see it there and I will follow up. Sorry about that. Okay, so that's how you see the rule changes. These are some rules that are on the horizon. You're welcome to participate in those workshops. Kind of interesting to listen to. Sometimes they're incredibly boring. Sometimes they're really juicy. You never know. Okay, so the other big question, and this has been like the question since the beginning of time, is about the notifications and the process for redetermination. So if you will indulge me just for a moment, I want to just walk through what that process looks like and how it works. And the next slide is about how we notify providers. And the most common redeterminations we're dealing with are the BG8. So I'm not going to get into the other funding categories today because this is primarily what it is, but I think this will give you a general idea. So with the redeterminations, we send out, and these are automated through the data system, the official standard required notifications that go to parents regarding their impending redetermination are email notifications that are sent automatically through EFS Mod or through the family portal. They are sent 45 days in advance, again, 30 days in advance, and then again, 15 days in advance, unless they've already submitted everything. Once that 45-day notice goes out, that's when the submission button appears. So they can't submit their redetermination 60 days in advance. The button is physically not there. But once that 45-day happens, then the window has opened. They can submit their documents and we can process it. Now, we all know that the rollout of the family portal, the provider portal, had some challenges early on. And so what we did at the time, knowing that one, it was a big change going from an online process or going from a paper process to an online process, it was a big shift for our families. And our confidence was not totally there in the system. And so as a courtesy, our staff had been, and they are, manually creating, these are not automated, manually creating paper letters for every single family, composed and sent via US mail. So they get snail mail as well, advising them to log into the portal so that they can recertify their eligibility. Then once the recertification documents are submitted, which they have to upload in the portal, but we'll assist them in our lobbies. They can use our equipment. We'll make sure that they have access. We've also, as you remember, given out hundreds of computers to providers to make available to families to help with the uploading and submission of documents so that technology is not the barrier for families. And then once they submit everything, the staff have up to 10 days to review those documents, 10 business days to review it and respond. At that point, they're either going to say, everything's good, your documents are complete, you're eligible, here's your recertification, or we've got everything, but you don't qualify. You're over income, you don't meet the criteria, whatever the case is, they'll do that. Or they may reject it because it's incomplete. And this is not an uncommon issue. Parents will submit 2/3 of what they need, but they don't submit all the pay stubs or they're missing a document. And there's always a back and forth. I shouldn't say always. There is sometimes, many times, a back and forth with the parents because it's a lot. I mean, these parents they're busy. There's a reason, that they're stressed right now. And so it's always a challenge because there's that one more paper that they have to get. And so they'll say, I submitted everything. Miss Lindsay, I put it in there. It is in, I uploaded everything. I hit submit. I've done my part. They have, and they believe that they have, except that they're missing something. So then what happens is we have to go in the system, and it's officially termed as rejecting due to missing documentation. And we send that rejection to the parent and say, hey, we can't process your redetermination because you're missing something. Oftentimes what we see is in those cases, once the parent hits submit, they are done. They're not always catching those follow-up conversations and those follow-up notices that say, hey, wait, we're not done. And so they think they've done everything, but they're still not getting it. They're still not getting it. And there's always, communication is always a challenge there. So there's always stuff for us to be looking at that. Now, as a courtesy, what we've been doing is that in the case of a rejected redetermination, when we find that they're missing documentation, we have been doing phone calls to parents, personal phone calls as a courtesy, because the system was not, we weren't totally confident in the system. We are temporarily calling families for the moment where their files have been rejected because they're missing something, to say, hey, you've missed something. Our goal more than anything in this world is to ensure children have access to quality early learning programs. We are in the business of keeping kids in care. We are not in the business of terminating eligibility. We are not a for-profit organization that pockets the leftover dollars if families are not served. Our goal is to keep children in care, continuous care, so there's not that disruption. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that families are fully informed, they know what is expected of them and how to do it, and we offer assistance in any way we can to make sure that they can do that. All the documents must be submitted by the due date to remain eligible. At the time that their eligibility is over, the ability for them to submit documents is gone. And that's in the system. If a family does not submit everything by their eligibility date, they will be terminated. And that's standard. That's not a local practice. That's how the eligibility process works. And that's statewide. So the other issue is that at the time of redetermination, the kids get 12 months of eligibility. And while they're within that 12 months, if there's a change in the parent's employment status, for example, they have a window. Now this is setting COVID aside, so we'll get to that in a second, but under normal circumstances, if the family has a change and there's a disruption in their purpose for care within that 12 months, they have a window where they can reestablish employment, reestablish purpose of care, and they don't automatically get terminated. There's a window. However, if that disruption happens to occur at the time of their redetermination, we can only, the scholarship is for 12 months. We cannot recertify them if they don't have a purpose for care under normal circumstances. So right now we do have some flexibility because of we have flexibility because of COVID. But under normal circumstances, this is how it works. So the other thing is that when they come into care, they can come in up to 200% of the federal poverty level. So of course we have our table and our sliding scales that we use. Once they're in care, they can remain in care as long as they stay below, they can even renew care as long as they are still below 85% of the state median income. So you'll notice there's federal poverty level, which is much lower. The state median income is significantly higher. So once they get their foot in the door, there's a pretty big window or a pretty big range that they can have in terms of household income and still remain eligible once they're in the door. But they have to start at or below 200% of the federal poverty level. And you may hear others in the state talk about 150%. And that is the standard for the state. But because we have the generous funding from the Juvenile Welfare Board and local funding sources, we are actually able to extend eligibility up to 200% of the federal poverty level. All right, I think that covers everything on there. Let me know if you have any questions. Kim will answer them because this is going to probably start to hit my peak of knowledge and availability or knowledge and awareness of these things, but doing the best I can. So provider notices. Now this is the part where we've talked round and round and round about it. And I'm hoping we can kind of have a little bit of a conversation today. So first, In the provider portal, you can see all redeterminations, the dates, the redetermination dates on the rosters in MOD. The recert dates are also listed on the payment certificates that the clients can see and that you can see. As a courtesy, with the transition to EFS MOD, we have been providing manually written notifications to providers that are uploaded into the document library in MOD about 30 to 45 days prior to redetermination as an extra reminder that these children have a redetermination coming up. Once the child redetermines or is determined to be ineligible, the provider portal is immediately updated. So if their eligibility is denied, excuse me, if it's denied or approved, you don't need to call to confirm, because if it's been approved, it's going to show in the provider portal. It's going to say in the provider portal, you're going to see the date flip on their eligibility window. Finally, you can also confirm the successful recertification on the, oh, I just said that, on the redetermination date on the roster, and it's on the payment certification. So there's multiple places that you can do that. Now, I'm just going to put this out there to you because we are limited in capacity. There were some things that we did as courtesies early on because of the challenges with the data system. We were trying to just make sure that in every which way, from every angle, people were getting the communication they needed, so that nothing fell through the cracks. I will be honest, the old system where we used to be able to send you guys some of those letters and things, they were automated, that we were able to automate, and they would just print out a stack and we would just mail them to you. The letters that you're getting now are hand typed in order for us to send those notifications. In the providers that I've spoken to, albeit limited, which is why I'm bringing it up here to get your feedback, nobody looks at those 30 to 45 day notices prior to redetermination. They're looking at the rosters, they're looking at the payment certificates, but they're not looking at they're not going into the document library in MOD to look at those things. So as we walk through, and I have a few other slides to go through, as we walk through it, I bring this up because I want to hear from you in terms of what steps are we taking that are really helpful, and what things are we doing that may take a lot of administrative time, but don't actually meet your needs. They don't help. We don't have the capacity to do necessarily everything. But if we're doing something right now that's not particularly helpful, then let's stop doing those things and start doing something that would be more beneficial to you or more helpful to you. So I'd be curious to know from you guys if do you really pay attention to those letters? Is that really a meaningful, worthwhile effort where we have multiple people working every day trying to make sure everybody gets that stuff? Or are they obsolete at this point now that the system is working a little better? Early on, we didn't have a choice. We had to do something. But I think I see that as something that we could potentially phase out, which would then free up time to do things like answer the phone, which I know is one of our biggest challenges. So that's just something to think about. Please feel free to put something in the comments. I'd love to hear your feedback on that. Now, of course, the hardest part is always when there's a termination. So terminations, if they're a normal 12-month eligibility, their termination is always going to be effective the last day of their eligibility period. Now that's the last day that we can pay for. After that, if they're not eligible, we can't pay for it. So, and the system itself, as you guys, I'm sure, are fully aware, the system will stop you. You can't enter in attendance for a day that the child's not eligible. So when we used to do paper rosters, you could put things in. Now it's not even an option. Now that's at the end of the 12-month period. In other cases, something happens midway through their 12-month period and they are no longer eligible. In that case, they're given a 14-day term notice. They're told 2 weeks in advance that, and it can't go past their eligibility date, but they are given typically 2 weeks. So if their family, let's just say the parent loses their job or stops working or stops going to school, and they don't reestablish a purpose for care in the appropriate time frame, and they're ultimately going to lose services, then there's a 14-day term. There's a phase out there. Now, in the event that a family, say they don't do their redetermination on time and they are terminated, they must reapply for services. Once the child is terminated in the system, The only way for us to reopen the case, the only way to get them back into care is to have them apply through the waitlist process. And then we have to enroll them in order based upon the time in which they came on the waitlist and our eligibility priorities. We can't reinstate them after the fact and have them skip the line. Now, this is really difficult. It's really difficult because we want to support continuity of care. We want to make sure that we're not disrupting services to children, to families. We understand the relationship with caregivers. So our goal is to keep children in care, but ultimately we do, the money that we have to support these programs comes with strings attached. And this is one of those that we have to follow. That's why we work so hard on the front end to try to get those families before their care runs out. All right. This is what I'm really wanting to talk with you guys about. The notifications to providers. So we've talked about all the different ways that you're informed about their redetermination timeframes. We've talked about the ways that the families are notified of their redetermination and potentially terminations. So one of the biggest complaints we get is that terminations occur at the time of redetermination, and then providers get the call on the last day of care if their redetermination has not been completed or approved. So either they didn't get it in on time or they don't qualify. I really want to talk to you guys about this because I understand if you're counting on that money to find out that tomorrow Johnny's not going to be back, or at least Johnny doesn't have funding, then it's a big issue. So one of the brainstorms we've been having with staff, because we had received through this group and through others, we've received feedback, and we've really been looking at our processes internally to say, what could we do to make it easier for providers? And this is an issue that came up. So one of the ideas was maybe instead of calling the last day, we call 5 days ahead and say, hey, heads up, this kid is due to redetermine in 5 days and we have not received the documents. So we're unable to confirm that. Now, if we moved and called 5 days ahead, we would not be calling the last day. If we did the 5 days ahead, that means that we've given you the heads up, and now you're relying on the data system. You're relying on your provider portal to tell you, did the parent come through and get it approved or not? So you know whether or not that child's going to be paid the next day. We don't have the capacity to make individual phone calls 5 days ahead and the last day of care. We just don't have it. And it's just not feasible. But if calling 5 days ahead or whatever time frame, I'd love to hear your feedback. If calling those days ahead works better for you, we can make those adjustments. There are certain things we don't have authority over, and frankly, the calls that we make are courtesy calls. These are not standard levels of service that we have to comply with or that are required by the state. It's a level of service that we want to provide for our providers so that you're as informed as possible and we're supporting our providers and our families. So we want to continue that. We just can't do it on both ends. So with that said, put in the chat, give me some indicator here. Would you prefer it to be 5 days? And this is not the last conversation we'll have about this, but I'm still just as a straw poll interested to hear from you guys. Would it be helpful to bump those last minute calls up a little so they're not quite so last minute? But then that does put the requirement, it does put the onus on you to then continually follow up in the portal to make sure that the final, the final thing got hit, that it was approved. Now, as I mentioned, if in the case that a termination is going to occur prior to the end of their eligibility period for whatever reason, if that termination is happening from us, as opposed to the child moving, there is a 14-day notification. And in that case, we're telling them they have essentially 14 days to get some things figured out within that 12 months. Because the goal of the changes that happened a few years ago with 12-month eligibility was that they would actually have a full 12 months of care. So that's where that 14 days comes in. Now, I'm seeing some of the comments here, the same day termination. I don't blame you guys. I don't blame you. I do think that's something we need to change. The 14-day notice, it looks like there's a lot of push around 5 days. So, I mean, again, this is just a straw poll, and we'll look at it. The 14-day notice is a little far out. The fact of the matter is a lot of our families turn in their eligibility documents within that last 14 days. So I don't think we could really do the 14-day notice because frankly, that would be a lot of phone calls, because the further out we're making those calls, the more calls we're making. It would be a lot of phone calls that wouldn't necessarily be necessary, because those families are in the works of getting things done. But doing it about 5 days in advance could be a good compromise to give you more notice. And frankly, we all know we kind of count on you, because when you know the kid's not been redetermined, I know that y'all see them and they're signing their kid out at the end of the day saying, I see in the system you haven't redetermined, so what are we doing about that? So it's helpful to do that. So that's something that we have control over, that we can change and hopefully improve in service with you. I want to go back because I know I kind of threw it out there. The letters, you guys know the behind the scenes, and you know how administrative stuff is, but the manual letters that are being created, those notices are very time consuming. And I feel like by doing them, we're sacrificing service in other areas like the phones. So I am curious, how many of you guys are using those notices that go in your document library that says Lindsay's redetermination is happening in 45 days or 30 days? Is the roster enough? Is the portal enough? Do you have enough information that we could skip those letters and dedicate that time and service to other ways in supporting you and our families? Okay. Let's see. Last day of eligibility is displayed in mod. We talked about that. Roster terms, of course, you guys know that you can indicate on there if a child stops enrolling. If you don't hear from a child for 5 days, you know you to contact us. If you don't hear from them again within 10 days, contact us and we'll work with you on those cases. I don't know why the slide is in here. Okay. I don't know why that slide is in there, but it's a great segue. It's actually not a segue. It's a space holder. I don't even know. I copied this. I took this presentation from another one and cannibalized it to create this one today at the last minute. So I have scoop. Well, actually, before I get to my scoop, I'm looking at the comments here. Doesn't sound like people are using those letters. So hallelujah. Less letters, better phone numbers. That's what I'm going for here. All right. So I told you guys, I put a little note on there today on the Naptime or on the Facebook that I had scoop. I have scoop and I'm so excited to share this to you. However, before I go too far, I want to tell you that number one, what I'm about to share with you is proposed. It is proposed. It requires additional approval. This is not a promise, but a proposal, a pretty solid proposal that I feel pretty confident in, but cannot promise or guarantee. So that's where it is. The other thing I'll share with you is this is a statewide movement. So what's happening in different counties will be different based upon the way things are, but it is part of a statewide initiative that is being led by the Office of Early Learning that we are really excited to help execute. And this started, as I mentioned to you guys, I don't know if you remember, in one of our many chats, that last legislative session, in addition to the $60 million that the legislature put in to serve kids on the wait list, which is how we have been continuing to enroll, I shouldn't try to sing. We've been continuing to enroll children off of our waiting list because we did get a good share of that 60 million to serve families that needed care in Pinellas County. There was another pot of money that I think I told you guys about and said, don't even think about that because it's probably not coming here. Well, I was pleasantly wrong, and which I'm really excited about. So the other pot of money was a $50 million allocation from the Florida legislature. So you can thank your representatives, you can thank your senators, because they heard us for years. And just even this week, I went again and have advocated to our legislature about the need to increase funding and support for our early learning providers to help bring quality and supporting programming for our centers, for our homes, for our families, especially those that are at risk. Well, they heard us. So last year, what they did is they put a separate pot of money aside and said, we're going to put $50 million. $50 million. We're going to put that aside. And we want the Office of Early Learning to come up with a methodology to help increase provider reimbursement rates. Now, Pinellas County, as I've shared with you guys before, has among the very highest, if not the highest, reimbursement rates in the entire state. So when I heard this and I heard the early rumblings about what was going to happen with all this, I decided I wasn't going to get my hopes up too high on this one, because there are some coalitions who are, their reimbursement rates are like way lower than ours, like way lower than ours. To the point where they're like, is that a typo, Lindsay? No, that's just how we do it. So in any case, the cool thing is we did get money. And I'm going to walk you guys through what is being proposed. Now, again, proposed has to ultimately be approved by the legislature, has to sign off on this methodology and plan of the Office of Early Learning under DOE. DOE is finalizing their things, but feels pretty confident in kind of where we're headed. And then it goes to my board of directors, who will stamp it. So I just want to be clear, I haven't promised anybody. That was a big message this morning we got, not to promise. So I'm not promising. But let me just tell you what they're going to do is they are focused on a few areas. So first, their top focus has been on the infants and special needs. The special needs rates automatically go up because they're tied to the infant rates. So the infant special needs rate will go up, and that represents about 5% of our school readiness population. Then they're looking to increase this toddlers and preschool age 2, which has always been a challenge because, you know, 2's at a different ratio, but it always kind of got lumped in with the others. So this is actually a pretty cool change. And then the preschoolers. So I've got my disclaimer there about it being proposed. Let me give you the more exciting part. So what we're looking to do is effective January 1st, which means, yes, there will be a time crunch. Yes, it will be a headache. And do not try to call the staff right now and get an answer, because we don't have all the answers yet. So I'm going to tell you everything we know right now, and then we'll keep you posted and we'll work through this together because it's cool stuff. So infants will have an increase, and this is for both home centers, gold seal, non-gold seal, but the move is to bring infants up to pay 100% of the market rate. Now, remember, you guys do those surveys every year. Every other year, they do an analysis to figure out what's the cost of care and the market rate. They define the market rate as the 75th percentile. So when I say market rate, this doesn't necessarily going to be your full published rate, because it's the 75th percentile. And if you're above the 75th percentile, then you obviously charge more. However, this is still pretty substantial. So I'm going to walk through it all with you guys. So it brings the infants up to 100% of market rate, knowing that cost of care for infants is very expensive and hard for families, hard for providers to break even on at the very least, let alone make a profit, right? So then so that's 100% of the 75th percentile. Then toddlers and 2s, bringing them up to 85% of the 75th percentile. And these are the base reimbursement rates. So this does not include your quality performance incentives. So from your class assessments, if you're getting a 3% or a 5%, or you're doing the teaching strategies gold and you get the child assessment, those are all separate from this. This is your base reimbursements. And so then the next part is for the 3, 4s, and 5s, bringing it up to 75%. Now, you can see there's very little increase that you'll see on that age range, because Pinellas was already paying more than that in most cases, in almost every case. We were already paying, we did that rate increase, I think 2 years ago, to bring your rates up. And as it turns out, our 3s, 4s, and 5s, we were already paying above that. So we're not seeing a shift in those, but the shift is still significant. The increase to reimbursements, this is not new kids off the waiting list. This is increased investment in the children that we're already serving, is almost $1.2 million in Pinellas County for the rest of this year. So it's big, and I think it's worthwhile. So I'm going to show you guys at a high level what to expect. So first, this is homes. This is homes, large homes, small homes, as you can see. So the current rate for an infant is, I'm not going to read you the whole thing, I promise, but the current rate for an infant at a home is $32. Based upon the increase, getting them to 100% of market rate would bring it to $49 per day. This is a daily reimbursement rate. This is a really significant shift. Now, keep in mind, this is not an equal rate increase across the board, across care levels, or across provider types. It is a calibration based upon the market rates. So some increases, like the infants and homes, are going to be considerably higher than some others. For example, a Gold Seal home, because we were already paying closer to the market rate for an infant in a Gold Seal home, they're going to see an increase of $6.60 a day to bring them up, because there's got to be a typo there. I'm gonna have to take a look at that. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm so excited to show this to you. And as I'm looking at it, I feel like I reversed something, because the increase in the rates doesn't make sense with the Gold Seal. Oh my gosh. I'm going to come back to that, because I'm really sorry. I'm going to look it up. I can even look it up live while we're here. I just have to figure it out. Okay. Man, if one of my, they're not. Okay. I'm going to come back to that. I promise. I promise. I'm not going to leave you hanging. I will make sure you get the correct information today. I promise, promise, promise. Okay. The centers. So right now an infant in a center is at $41.12 per day. That would look at an increase of $14, bringing it to $55 a day. Gold Seal, it would bring them up to $57 per day, and going on. Now you'll see here that the 3s, 4s, and 5s are not seeing an increase, and that's because they were already above 75% of the market rate. So they didn't cut any rates. They take the higher of the two. They didn't cut any rates. However, they are not going to go above the 75%. But that's what this is. And it's driving me crazy that that number seems off on the other one. So sorry. But it's a rate increase. This is ongoing. This isn't like a grant where you get it one time and it's done. This is an ongoing rate increase. So it's exciting, because this is a pretty big thing and ongoing. It's a pretty significant investment and increase for the care that we're providing. And the hope is that certainly it will help you guys offset the increased costs that you're experiencing, and the shortages that you have had. Also, we know full well that there are significant differentials that our families are paying. And by increasing these rates, we do hope that we will be able to mitigate some of those required differentials to make quality care more accessible to our families. So it'll be a fine balance. Obviously, you guys have control over your businesses, but it was really encouraging to have the support of the legislature and the Department of Ed to make these investments. It does not apply to school age care. For my school age care providers, they did not make any adjustments to school age care. They were focused on birth to 5 already, but it's pretty substantial. And thank you, Sonia. It is huge. It's huge. Like that guy on the commercials. It's huge. So here's what I need you guys to know. First of all, I got the final documents like a hot minute ago. So obviously I'm still fine tuning it, because I have to look at that. However, we just got the information. We just got more clarification this morning. So I want to answer some questions right off the bat, because I have our team working feverishly to get all the ducks in a row so that we can pull this off for your January reimbursement. There will need to be an amendment to your school readiness contract. Those amendments are not ready. They're not ready yet. So stay tuned for the instructions on what to do with that. But if you call your if you call your contract specialist right now and ask them how to amend your contract, they're going to tell you they're not ready, because they just got this information. We just got the final scoop on this. They got it this morning. So they're not ready. So if you call them, that means that they're even further behind in getting ready to get this done. So it is super exciting. It is going to be a little bit of wait, now hurry up, because we've got to execute things quickly. And I hope you'll be patient with us and know that the staff is doing everything they can to pull this off, because I am very ambitious. When they told us we could do it for January 1, I said, then we will be doing it for January 1. We're not going to push this off till February. I want to get every resource we can to our providers as soon as possible. But this does mean that we're going to have to do a little bit of fancy dancing to make this happen. And we are counting on you to work with us and be patient. So for every single provider, for every single rate, everything has to be rekeyed, and they are diligently working to make sure those things happen. So there will be a contract amendment. You'll need to, submit that to us. You will get an email. I don't know if it'll be an individual email, if it's a group email, they'll figure that out today. But you're going to get a message that tells you exactly what to do so that you know how to make this all happen. I'm telling you everything that I know so far. I'm telling you, there's nothing else behind the scenes. So if you call me, it's 10 minutes after this, I'm not going to have any more information. But it is really cool to be able to do this right now after the extensive work. And I'll just tell you guys, I've worked behind the scenes extensively looking at the impact of market rate and minimum wage and what you guys are going through, and help to advocate to that. And so to see some of these things come to fruition to support our providers and support our families it's very encouraging. But in advance, it's going to be a headache for the next week or two. It's going to be a headache. So please be patient with us. I have told staff, focus on getting these things in, focus on getting it all taken care of. So I'm telling you, I know that you guys I know you like calls back. I can't promise that you're going to get a call back necessarily. You may get a follow-up next week. It may be an email because they are really prioritizing to make sure that you get the reimbursements and the money, but we'll get it figured out. We'll work together and we will make it happen. And we're doing everything we can to make it happen as quickly as possible. So that was my really big scoop. I hope you guys are excited. Of course, I can't hear you, but I'm sure you're probably cheering in the backgrounds. I think you'll find a way to do it. Yeah, Barbara, I know. I'm like, oh no, we can find a way. We're going to find a way. We're not going to turn down reimbursements and additional dollars for our providers. All right. So I see a lot of comments. Let me just go back because I want to make sure I didn't skip anything. Okay, so lots of good feedback on the timeline. I think that works. Some people didn't even know about the letters, so clearly you're not going to miss them. But we will make sure you get the other notifications. I'm not just missing the whole issue. All right, Tawana's dancing. That's what I like to see. Let's see. There were a couple other questions. Let me see. So while I'm scrolling through this, I'll also tell you guys, once this gets finalized, and it's in our board packet that'll go out, for our board meeting next week. And once all this stuff gets finalized, of course, that's what we have to wait on before we can execute the contracts in part. So they can't execute contracts changing the rates until we get the official clearance from the Office of Early Learning. So they can't do it today because they don't have the final approval on that. However, yeah, I totally lost my train of thought. It was going to be brilliant. I'm sure it was. Yep, it's gone. It's totally gone. I'm sorry. So, oh, I know what else I needed to tell you. So stay tuned for that. I think it's cool. Now, next Friday, no Naptime news. I'm so sorry. I will miss you guys very much, but unfortunately, I will not be able to do the Naptime news. So I just wanted to make sure you guys knew. So I didn't want to stand you up. However, you guys can certainly email me or call me or send a carrier pigeon. We certainly want to be able to provide any guidance and support that you need. It just won't be on Naptime news next week. As I mentioned, this e-news or this presentation, we are going to email. I know this was a lot of information and a lot of stuff. We are going to email it out to you, hopefully by the end of today, so that you have it just for reference. But I am going to double check those rates that I kind of skimmed through because something doesn't look right there. So I'll make sure it's correct before you guys get it and verify that it was done. It was calculated directly based upon the market rates. So we didn't have any discretion or judgment on it. This is what the market rate is based upon the survey of providers. And this is the percentage of that. It was very cut and dry. But we'll take it. So, all right. Not seeing anything else come through. I feel like I missed something. Here it is. Kim was telling us. Okay. Oh, thank you, Lisa. I'll tell you, this is exciting, but really it's exciting to share it with you because we couldn't do any of this work without our partners and our providers that are on the front lines every day. So thank you for all that you guys do, because I think you're pretty awesome and we're very fortunate in Pinellas County. I do spend a lot of time hearing from other parts of the state and other communities and what they're facing and what they're going through and what their challenges are. And, I'm so proud to be from Pinellas County and working with such amazing people because you guys really are doing some amazing things with our kids despite the challenges. And It's pretty cool. On a related note, I did present. You may have seen there was an article in the Bay News. Well, I guess an article, story, whatever. These days, it's all the same thing to me. But Bay News 9 covered the delegation meeting, which was interesting because there was like over 100 people there probably, and everybody gets 2 minutes. So they have these meetings. They talk for a couple of minutes, and then everybody gets their turn at the podium to give their spiel. Right. So I meet privately, I meet independent, individually with legislators, but I always try to go to the delegation meeting and make my public statement. And this time I really did focus it on the need for our providers to have support as they recover from COVID, and really tied in the intersection between the economic recovery, which is their top priority right now, and how you guys are so essential to that. And it was received pretty well. In follow up, I think people really picked up on it. I especially think people picked up on it because there was a short article about that meeting by Bay News 9, and yet we got a fair amount of real estate covering that issue in that article. Like there was only like 6 paragraphs, and they gave a whole paragraph to the great work that you guys do, essentially. And so I think people are starting to listen. I want to remind you, for those of you who are interested in the COVID vaccine, and I know that not everyone is, that's the prerogatives. However, I continually am hearing about the push for public school teachers to get priority for the vaccines. I want you to know 2 things. One, we are working behind the scenes trying to advocate to get you guys on the priority list, whether it's for 65 plus folks, which I know not everybody's over 65. However, certainly we want access, and then subsequently really focusing on the need for you to have access to the vaccines for all ages, and especially those with compromising health conditions. Should it be appropriate for you and you want the vaccine, we see you as essential workers and know that, and we are really pushing for you guys as caregivers where social distancing isn't really an option for you, and hoping to advocate to get you guys on the priority list for that. I can't make any guarantees on that. I will tell you, I'm actually bringing it to my board of directors to ask for them to provide formal support through letter to Governor DeSantis, asking for him to prioritize our early learning and school age care providers right along with our K-12 providers or our K-12 schools. There's nothing that they're doing that is more at risk than what you're doing. In fact, I would argue that changing diapers and little ones not wearing masks could make a case that perhaps there's more exposure there. So in any case, I wanted you to know that advocacy is happening, but also highly encourage and invite you to join us in that advocacy as you see appropriate, for yourselves and for your employees. It does make sense. It really does. And I would encourage too, if you're part of an association or organization, they need to continue to hear from it. Read the paper every day. There's a different organization that's talking about this issue as it relates to our public school teachers, which I would never disagree with. I just know that y'all need it too. So I'm not quiet about this, and we'll continue to work through that. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions. Kimberly, I know I went through a lot on eligibility. Kimberly works, she's our family services trainer. I went through a lot on there. I hope I didn't misspeak or get anything wrong, but I do hope that if I did, you will correct me. Make sure they get the right information. Don't worry about correcting me. Just make sure it's right. Lynn, that's a good question. If some people want to carpool or have one person pick up for other providers, I don't really see anything wrong with that. If you've got a note or if we get an email, I'd say if we get an email from another provider saying Lynn's going to pick up my stuff, we'll do the best we can. Our goal is to get the resources out to our providers. We just didn't have the capacity to hand deliver or do mail. Plus we miss your faces. So it was kind of exciting to think you're going to come through and we get to see your faces a little more. However, yeah, we should be able to figure that out. I'll talk to the team offline. So for my team that's looking, but I don't think it should be a big issue. What I'm not positive is who your contact would be. If they're going to send an email, saying that they're going to send somebody, I don't want them to like email God and everybody and all of that. Pardon that expression. Yeah. I'm going to make a statement. You know what? If you're going to send someone other than yourself to go pick up your things, I'm going to ask that you send an email to your contract specialist, and let them know who's going to pick it up for you. And then we will have them forward it to whoever is going to be the holder of that list. That's what my command decision is on that issue, so I don't leave you hanging on that. Okay, good point. Thank you guys so much. That was the end of what I had to share with you guys today. So I hope it puts you on a good note for the weekend and get you ready. I'm not sure. I don't see any other questions. So I don't want to keep you. I appreciate and value your time always. And if there's something more that we can assist you with, let us know. I know it was a lot today. I feel like I was a little rambling, but it's good stuff. So we'll take it. All right. A letter with a copy of their driver's license. Are you, okay, hold on. Maybe I misunderstood your question, Lynn. So let me just make sure I have it right. So what I was thinking that you were saying, Lynn, was like, if you were coming to pick it up for a few other of your provider friends, so of course we know you. If it's somebody that we don't know, then like, are you saying like have like somebody else just go pick it up for you, like a family member or something like that? I'm just not sure. Angela's on it. She got a plan. Angela, do you want them to actually contact the contract specialist, or would you rather direct that communication somewhere else? You can put it in the chat and tell me if I did it wrong. That's okay too. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for all that you do, and know that it's not going unnoticed, just not by me, and certainly not by those who have a lot more power to give and support, to the tune of $50 million in rate increases throughout the state, and 1.2 for Pinellas County, and those dollars will hit soon. So continue the great work, and we appreciate you. Have a good one, everybody. Stay safe.